I think when I had to ask myself this question before, my first memory is a fairly generic memory of leaves and sun. I suppose when I'm in a pram or something, just this light and leaves. I feel like saying, may not be true, but I feel like saying the sound of pigeons, croo 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 croo, which goes with that. That's my intuition. The sound of birds. I think probably the first movie I saw was Bambi, but the first movie that I really remember making an impact was a very particular one, because for many years I thought it was a dream. Mm-hmm. And I kept asking people if they'd seen this film, and nobody could work out what it was. And only about 5-7 years ago, somebody was able to identify. It was a film that I must have seen on television. A film made by Charles and Ray Eames called Powers of 10. And you can go on YouTube and find it. And this film for me, this film for me was like the birth of my interest in cinema, really, because it's all about perspective and the fact that the frame can take us to any kind of distance and any kind of intimate closeness. And I love that film. And when I curate film festivals, I always program that film, particularly for the children. I think it's a great film for people to see when they're very young. I mean, Derek Jarman was the first practicing artist that I met. And he became my companion, it feels reductive to call him a teacher, because he wasn't really a teacher, but I was a young person and he was 20 years older than me, and he was a practicing artist, and he took so many of us young ones, myself, Sandy Powell, Simon Fisher-Turner, into his family, and we learned by doing how to work collectively in film. But other things as well. I mean, I started to travel with him, really. I traveled before with my family, but I traveled independently with him as an adult person. He taught me a wonderful thing when I remember going to Italy with him, and we would always be leaving on a plane that was too early for what we wanted to do. And I would always go, oh, we've never managed to see that thing or see that person or do that thing. And he would always say, always leave a place with something undone, because then you will always return. And I operate that maxim throughout my life now. And that's what I feel about returning to Bogota. I feel there's more to be done here, so I will always keep returning. Well, the first time I came to Colombia was to Cartagena, to the film festival. And I suppose the first real sort of impact was the friends I met here. I mean, I met Diana Bustamante, who was the director of the film festival at that time, who is our producer and is now not only a comrade but a great friend, and it really does feel like family. And my friend Anna, we met those people then. We started to talk about possibly making this film with Joe, and so we did. And here we are again. It just goes on and on. And so I think fellowship is what I found when I first came here. And I shouldn't have been surprised by that, because I've learned now not to be surprised by fellowship, and that you can find it everywhere. But it's always a very welcome thing to be reminded that you can go to the other side of the planet and find people who you really feel like a kinship with. When I was a child, I didn't know any filmmakers at all. I didn't know any artists. My father was a soldier, and my family didn't know any artists. But my mother had a cousin who was married to a screenwriter, And at a certain point, when I was about 17, I was ill for quite several months. I had a glandular fever and I was in bed for months. Very, very boring reverie in bed. And I remember my mother's cousin bringing me a screenplay to amuse me. And I'd never seen a screenplay. I mean, you know, when you see a screenplay for the first time, it's like hieroglyphics. You can't really work it out. She brought me this screenplay, and I remember poring over it for weeks, trying to work it out. It was like a code. And it was the screenplay of The Man Who Fell to Earth. Yeah. And this is around about the time when I was, you know, a massive, massive David Bowie. No, my first memory of David Bowie was when I was about 12 or 13, when I bought my first ever LP, long playing record. Before I had anything to play it on, I bought Aladdin Sane. I had some money from Christmas and I spent it on Aladdin Sane. And I carried it around for a long time before I could even hear it. It was this image on the front of Aladdin Sane that for me was he felt like my cousin. I always, you know, I'm very blessed to be able to say that he became a friend, and we called each other cousin, always. In many ways, yes. I mean, this is a film that I'm very proud of, and it was the second film I made, directed by an extraordinary filmmaker called Peter Wallen, who is known mainly as a film theoretician. He wrote a very seminal book called Signs and Meanings in the Cinema. And he made this film, Friendship's Death, which is about an encounter in 1971 between a journalist and a woman who is an extraterrestrial, Friendship, who I play. And this film was almost a lost film, and the BFI finally have made a new print of it, and we presented it in Cannes this year, so it's going to be available on Blu-ray now, actually. And it's about the alien's perspective.
Yes.
I mean, it's entirely for you to see. I mean, for me, aren't we all aliens? I find it very difficult to imagine someone honestly saying that they've never felt like an alien. I mean, like society or that humanity knows stuff that they don't know. I think if we're honest, I think we all know that experience. And we sort of negotiate with that feeling all the time. And some of us are honest enough to admit it. I think that feeling of being alien is very close.